Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to do something a little different, a little separate from looking at the electoral map, analyzing Senate results, House results. I really wanted to take a look at Donald Trump's future within our country, within the Republican Party, within politics and the political environment itself, because again, Donald Trump has significant sway over voters. He has significant sway in our country, and his decision whether or not, for example, to start a new political party can be extremely, extremely important. And I think we've seen growing factions that are existing within the Republican Party. Right. So I'm looking at this headline right now on CNN that Republicans acquitted Trump again, but this time is different. And essentially, what the article goes over is the idea that there are growing factions within Trump's party. Right. In the first acquittal vote, with the Ukraine scandal, there were no Republicans except for Mitt Romney on one charge that joined the Democrats in voting to convict Donald Trump. However, we saw this was the most bipartisan impeachment vote in history. We saw 10 Republicans vote to impeach in the House, and we saw around 7 senators impeach in the Senate, right? So this was the most bipartisan impeachment vote, which again adds somewhat important significance to the Republican Party because are we potentially seeing factions form within the Republican Party in terms of certain politicians such as Mitt Romney and Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski on one side, and then we see a lot more of the Trump supporters such as Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul on another side, right? So not only did this highlight the divisions and Trump's legacy in the impeachment, but it also highlighted that the Republican Party is starting to somewhat break with Trump. And despite McConnell voting to acquit Trump, he gave a very powerful condemnation of Trump's actions and said that he could be criminally liable. So again, that might also factor into whether or not Trump is eligible. Yes, he is eligible because he was acquitted, but the question is whether or not he will actually be a viable candidate to run within the Republican Party, and that exactly leads me into Trump potentially forming a new party. Right, this could be hugely significant because, as we've seen, the majorities for the Democrats in the House and the Senate are extremely slim, right? It's about a 5-seat majority in the House, and it's 50-50 in the Senate with Kamala Harris breaking the tie, right? So Republicans realistically, they need every single vote they can get. They need every seat that they can get. So Donald Trump potentially running as a third party can be hugely significant for Republican prospects to actually take back the Senate, to actually take back the House, right? If there was a united Republican Party that had a clear set of beliefs that Mitt Romney and Rand Paul and Ted Cruz all collectively served together as one Republican Party, they would have a much stronger, and this is just true, that they would have a much stronger possibility of actually retaking the House and the Senate. However, if we see Donald Trump begin to float ideas, as he has been since losing the election, of forming a new party, then that could significantly reduce Republican chances of actually taking back the House and the Senate. Because again, 80 to 90% of Republicans approve of Donald Trump. And a new poll actually came out that 54% of Republicans want Donald Trump to remain a mainstream figure within the Republican Party. So again, he is liked and favorable by the large majority of Republicans. And if we're looking at this new poll, 64% of GOP voters say they would join a Trump-led new party. And 36% Republican respondents said that they are either very or somewhat unlikely to join. Now, again, that somewhat unlikely doesn't mean that they won't, doesn't mean that they can't. But what this shows is that a clear majority of GOP voters would move to a new political party. And many have actually discussed an idea of the Patriot Party. And this is actually something that began in the state of Wisconsin and was created through this headline as Trump voters split from the GOP, right? So it was right around a month or so after the election, after the Electoral College certified the results in early December, there was growing speculation of whether or not very diehard Trump supporters would begin to form their own political party, right? So here, this is the logo of the Patriot Party of the state of Wisconsin. So the Patriot Party of the state of Wisconsin, again, this is essentially a Trump coalition, right? This is a group of Trump supporters in Wisconsin that essentially are trying to divide themselves from the GOP, right? They feel as if the GOP does not fail Trump and does not necessarily represent his values. And again, these are his diehard supporters that are certainly going to go along with whatever Trump decides to do. Um, Again, this is a significant problem within the party itself, because if we see certain states begin to float these ideas and potentially even establish new parties, such as Wisconsin, Donald Trump can steal a considerable amount of support from Republicans, and this doesn't even have to be when he's on the ballot, right? If we're looking at the current interactive map for 2022, let's say, just to look at the next closest election, if Trump decides to form that new political party, even if he's not on the ballot, third-party candidates in a state like Wisconsin, they could run and take votes away from Republicans, because again, Democrats are not going to vote for Republicans, and they're certainly not going to vote for a candidate who supports the Patriot Party or who's running on the Patriot Party platform, which is again one that is MAGA oriented, MAGA infused. So potentially someone like Ron Johnson, who's up for re-election, this could turn from a lean Republican state to a lean Democratic state, right? If you have significant Republican drop-off, significant support among a third-party candidate, then we could see that the election might move heavily towards the Democrats. And when we're looking at a scenario where it's 50-50 in the Senate and close to 50-50 in the House with a very slim majority, the Republicans need to be entirely united in the same way that the Democrats also need to be entirely united. We're seeing growing factions in the Democratic Party as well with regards to the COVID relief bill, with regards to how Joe Biden should be handling the economy and the $15 minimum wage gap. Again, some more progressive support. Centrists such as Kirsten Sinema has said that they do not support the $15 minimum wage gap. So again, even though we're focusing more on the Republican Party in this video, it serves to prove a greater point that the parties need to be united in order to win. If Trump decides to essentially screw the Republican Party, to take votes away, he can jeopardize a lot of these seats where Trump has significant support, such as North Carolina, such as potentially Florida, such as even something as in Ohio if there's significant drop-off. So again, the idea of a Trump political party can certainly attract a lot of Trump voters. And this is something January 19th, right before Biden's inauguration, the headline was that Trump has discussed starting a new political party. And Mr. Trump has feuded in recent days with several Republican leaders, including Mitch McConnell, who on Tuesday said Mr. Trump deserved blame for provoking the deadly January 6th riot. So we're seeing, again, Trump pinning himself against a lot of these Republican leaders, such as Mitch McConnell, who Trump's influence, the reason why someone like McConnell had to vote to acquit Donald Trump was, number one, he wanted to keep his base of supporters while at the same time condemning his actions, right? You don't want to condone the actions of Trump in the trial. However, he cannot lose his supporters. And again, I'm trying to speak in specifics to somewhat expand to a larger idea that Trump has significant sway in his party. And as long as Trump is essentially the face of the Republican Party, he is going to essentially control how politics works. The tenure of the Republican Party itself is going to come from Trump, right? It is going to come from Trump. So again, I think something that to add is from this article is that any effort to start a new party would likely face intense opposition from Republican Party officials who had chafed at the thought of Mr. Trump peeling off support from GOP candidates. So again, is this Trump potentially wanting to keep his movement alive, or is it Trump trying to say, listen, I lost and I want to essentially ruin the Republican Party? Is that his goal? Again, regardless, it would have a very similar effect for Trump and the Republican Party. Um, but again, we're looking at such a divided country right now that it seems very likely that something like this could happen. And it seems very likely that if Trump wants to remain mainstream and wants to remain a prominent political figure, he is going to go this way. And Trump is really the first Republican, or not even the first Republican, the first political candidate who, after they leave office as a president, still is in control of their party, right? He owns the party. Someone like Obama, someone like Clinton, someone like Bush, once they left, they were gone. And we moved on to a new leader and a new party. However, Trump does not fit in that same category. Trump is extremely unique, and there's no question that Trump is was a unique president and is going to be a unique candidate if he runs in 2024 as a former president. So potentially, the idea of forming the Patriot Party could really cost Republicans a lot of seats, and Democrats are notably quite silent on this issue because they know if Trump starts his own party, they're going to see something like a repeat in Georgia, right? Where Democrats at this point, the Georgia seat now serving by Raphael Warnock is leaning to the Democrats. So when Trump's effect in Georgia, when Trump went down to Georgia to campaign, when Trump tried to get out his own voters, again, we saw Democrats winning. So as Trump's support fades in our country, as he becomes more less mainstream every day, again, when he peels away those Republicans, as he becomes less popular himself, he is going to damage the Republican Party. So again, if there's any future ideas for videos, anything you would like to see, please don't hesitate to let me know. I thought this was a new, interesting idea. So again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.